Most people will never understand why certain individuals seem to operate on a completely different level. Why some people walk into a room and immediately read what is happening beneath the surface, the real motivations, the hidden agendas, the unspoken power dynamics, while everyone else is still processing the surface. Why some people make decisions that consistently produce better outcomes, navigate conflicts with surgical precision, and build influence that compounds over time while others repeat the same patterns, fall for the same traps, and wonder why the results never change. The answer is not raw intelligence. It is not luck. It is not even experience in the conventional sense. It is something far more specific and far more learnable than most people have been led to believe. It is the mastery of a small set of psychological principles so fundamental, so deeply embedded in how human beings actually think and behave, that once you understand them, you cannot unsee them. Once you have these frameworks operating in your mind, every conversation, every negotiation, every social interaction becomes transparent in a way that gives you an almost unfair advantage over the people around you. In the next 6 minutes, across these 3 segments, we are going to give you the core of that understanding. Not watered-down motivational concepts, not surface-level life hacks. The actual psychological mechanics that govern human behavior at the deepest level, drawn from dark psychology, behavioral science, and the strategic wisdom of the most formidable minds in history. Let us begin with the single most important psychological principle you will ever learn about human behavior. People do not act on reality. They act on their perception of reality. This sounds simple. It is not. The implications of this principle, fully understood and fully internalized, restructure how you see every human interaction you will ever have. Every person you encounter is not responding to what is actually happening. They are responding to the story their mind has constructed about what is happening, a story built from their prior experiences, their fears, their desires, their identity, their cognitive biases, and their emotional state in that particular moment. Their behavior, their decisions, their reactions, all of it is downstream of that story, not downstream of reality. This means that the person who wants to influence outcomes in business, in relationships, in conflict, in negotiation, does not primarily need to change reality. They need to understand and shape the story that the other person is telling themselves about reality. This is the foundation of dark psychology, not manipulation in the crude sense. Strategic understanding of the gap between perception and reality, and the disciplined use of that understanding to move people and situations in directions that serve your objectives. Machiavelli understood this at the core of his political philosophy. He wrote that the prince who governs reality without governing perception will always be vulnerable to those who govern perception without concern for reality. The world, he observed, is full of people who see what you appear to be and very few who see what you actually are. Therefore, what you appear to be is, in the arena of power, more important than what you are. This is not a license for deception. It is a call to awareness, an instruction to stop being naive about the gap between appearance and reality in others and in yourself. Because the person who does not understand this principle is permanently at the mercy of those who do. Begin to audit every interaction through this lens. Ask not just what is happening, but what story is the other person telling themselves about what is happening? What are their perceptions, their assumptions, their emotional filters? What do they believe about you, about themselves, about the situation, and how is that belief driving their behavior? When you can answer these questions, you are no longer reacting to the surface. You are operating at the level where outcomes are actually determined. The second principle that will immediately separate your thinking from 90% of the people around you is the understanding of cognitive biases and how they are silently governing every decision being made around you, including your own. The human brain is not a rational processing machine. It is a pattern recognition and energy conservation system that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in environments radically different from the one we currently inhabit. To navigate the overwhelming complexity of modern life, the brain relies on mental shortcuts, heuristics, that allow it to make rapid decisions without expending the full cognitive energy that genuine rational analysis would require. These shortcuts work reasonably well in many situations, but they also produce systematic, predictable errors in judgment that are so consistent and so universal that psychologists have cataloged them in extraordinary detail. These are cognitive biases, and they are not occasional glitches. They are the default operating system of the human mind. The person who understands cognitive biases operates with a map of the territory that the unaware person does not have. They can see where decisions are being driven by bias rather than genuine reasoning. They can anticipate how people will respond to information presented in certain ways. They can recognize when their own thinking is being distorted and correct for it before it produces a bad outcome. Let us walk through the 3 most powerful biases you need to understand immediately. The first is confirmation bias, the brain's tendency to seek, interpret, and remember information in ways that confirm what it already believes. Once a person has formed an opinion about a person, a situation, an idea, their mind becomes a highly selective filter, actively seeking evidence that supports that opinion and dismissing or minimizing evidence that contradicts it. This is why arguments almost never change minds. You are not engaging with a rational processor. You are pushing against a confirmation engine. The strategically intelligent person does not try to argue people out of their biases directly. They work with the bias, introducing information in ways that allow the other person's confirmation engine to adopt it as their own conclusion. The second is the anchoring effect, the brain's tendency to over-rely on the first piece of information it receives when making subsequent judgments. In any negotiation, the first number stated becomes the psychological anchor around which all subsequent discussion orbits. In any first impression, the initial perception becomes the filter through which all subsequent information is processed. The person who understands anchoring controls the opening of every interaction, because they understand that whoever sets the anchor controls the frame, and whoever controls the frame controls the outcome. The third is social proof, the brain's deeply wired tendency to look to the behavior of others as guidance for its own behavior in situations of uncertainty. When people do not know what to do, they do what they perceive others to be doing. This is why the perception of momentum, popularity, and consensus is so extraordinarily powerful, and why the strategically intelligent person manages these perceptions deliberately rather than leaving them to chance. These 3 biases alone, understood deeply and applied consistently, give you an operating advantage in virtually every social and professional context you will ever enter. But the application requires one additional skill that most people never develop: the ability to observe your own thinking in real time, to catch yourself mid-bias, to notice when your confirmation engine is running, to feel the pull of an anchor and consciously evaluate whether it deserves the weight you are giving it. This metacognitive skill, thinking about your own thinking, is perhaps the single greatest differentiator between ordinary intelligence and the kind of strategic intelligence that consistently produces superior outcomes. It is not easy. It requires practice, discomfort, and a genuine commitment to seeing clearly rather than seeing comfortably, but it is learnable. And once learned, it is one of the most powerful tools you will ever possess. We arrive now at the third and final principle, and it is the one that ties everything together into a complete operating framework for thinking and acting at a level that most people never reach. It is the principle of strategic empathy, and it is almost universally misunderstood. Empathy in the popular sense is treated as a feeling, a warm emotional resonance with another person's experience. And in personal relationships, that dimension of empathy is real and valuable. But strategic empathy is something fundamentally different. It is a cognitive discipline. It is the trained ability to accurately model another person's internal world, their motivations, their fears, their desires, their red lines, their psychological needs, and to use that model to predict their behavior, shape your approach, and achieve outcomes that serve your objectives while navigating their psychology with precision. This is what the greatest strategists, negotiators, leaders, and influencers in history have always done. Sun Tzu built his entire philosophy of warfare on it. Know your enemy as you know yourself, and you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Not know your enemy's troop numbers or supply lines, know your enemy's mind, their psychology, their fears, what they value more than victory, what they fear more than defeat. Strategic empathy requires you to do something that most people find genuinely difficult: to temporarily set aside your own perspective and inhabit someone else's with genuine fidelity. Not to project what you would feel in their situation, but to understand what they actually feel, given who they are, what they have experienced, and what they want. This distinction is critical. Most people practice projection rather than empathy. They assume others think and feel as they do, and then they are perpetually surprised and confused when others behave differently. The strategically empathetic person makes no such assumption. They study the person in front of them. They listen at a level that goes beneath words, to tone, to body language, to what is left unsaid, to the gap between what someone claims to want and what their behavior reveals they actually want. And from that deep listening, they construct an accurate model that allows them to engage with extraordinary effectiveness. They know which door to knock on. They know which argument will land and which will bounce off. They know what the other person needs to feel before they will be ready to move, and they provide that feeling, not through manipulation, but through genuine understanding translated into strategic action. Here is the dark psychology truth that brings all three principles together into a single unified insight. The person who understands that people act on perception, who can read and work with cognitive biases, and who can accurately model another person's internal world. That person is not just smarter than most. They are operating in a fundamentally different game. A game where they see the mechanics that drive behavior while most people only see the behavior itself. A game where they are making moves that are 3 steps ahead of anyone who has not done this work. And here is the most important thing of all, the thing that makes this video different from every shallow listicle and surface-level hack content you have ever consumed. This is not a gift. It is a practice. Every principle in this video is a skill. Skills are built through deliberate application, through failure, through refinement, through the slow accumulation of real-world evidence that sharpens your models and deepens your understanding. You do not outsmart 90% of people by being born smarter. You outsmart 90% of people by doing the psychological work that 90% of people are not willing to do. By thinking about thinking. By studying human nature with the seriousness it deserves. By applying what you learn in every interaction, every decision, every moment of genuine engagement with the complexity of other human beings. The 3 principles we covered today, perception over reality, cognitive bias mastery, and strategic empathy, are your starting point, not your destination. Your destination is the life that opens up when these frameworks become second nature, when you no longer have to consciously apply them because they have become the lens through which you naturally see the world. That transformation takes time. It takes practice. But it begins in a moment of decision. The decision to stop seeing the world as most people see it and to start seeing it as it actually is. You just made that decision by watching this video. This is Dark Pattern Decoder, where we give you the psychological architecture of the most formidable version of yourself. If these 6 minutes shifted something in how you see the world, subscribe. Share this with someone ready for a new level of thinking and hit the notification bell. We are just getting started. See the game clearly. Play it better than everyone else. That is the only rule that matters.